let's take a look at our top selections for the Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. The feature race at Woodbine on Saturday kicks off the 20-cent pick 4. Let's throw up the field for race number 7. It is the Grade 3 Trillium, fillies and mares going 1 mile and a 16th on the all-weather surface. We have a field of 8, Super Escape, the 2-to-1 on the morning line. Heavenly Curl in the 8, the second choice on the line at 5-2. Kept some nice company down in South Florida on turf and is getting back to her preferred surface for Marcassi.
Yeah, it feels like she is. She's probably just not a turf horse at the end of the day, Dan. The 2 turf races over the winter weren't great, but her synthetic form from last year is very good.
Taking a look at the time form U.S. pace projector for this race. Super Escape, the morning line favorite, stretches out. Should show some good speed in this spot. Not exactly sure how fast she's going to go. Time form U.S. has the 1 Crystal Glacier close to the pace. I wonder if Sky Gaze, the 7, can get a little bit closer. I think she's more tactical than time form U.S. has given her credit for.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, she is coming out of some slower paced races over the winter. So, obviously that factors into the pace projector. But she has shown in the past that she can be forward if they want her to be. The good news for her is, as opposed to earlier in her career where it felt like she was a little bit harder to handle, she's rating very kindly lately.
Crystal Glacier is an interesting price play. 12-1 on the morning line. She was only beaten a half length by Heavenly Curlin last fall at Woodbine, and she does have a race this year on the turf at Churchill Downs where she took on a pretty decent group. One of the horses from that race came back to run second with an 86 Beyer speed figure. She's stepping up in class, but a good trip is coming, and she should save valuable ground.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that stuff. And she'll be a price in here. Going back to that race last October where she wound up being second to Heavenly Curlin, I mean, I would argue that Crystal Glacier might have run the better race that day. I mean, that was a very competitive pace that she was a part of. She had to put away a couple of challengers before Heavenly Curlin came for her, and she was very game through the stretch. I mean, I thought she ran well that day. The problem is she hasn't necessarily improved all that much since then.
The number 2, Super Escape, took them all the way in last year's edition of the Trillium. I would expect Luis Contreras to use similar tactics. The one difference is that last year she had a couple of sprint preps leading up to this race, and now she's going to try to win the Trillium off the layoff.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's something to certainly take into consideration. We'll see how sharp she is off the bench here as she tries to go back-to-back in this race. Overall, Dan, I just think she is the horse to beat in here. She does have speed. She's got the fast races on this surface. You don't really feel like the distance is a problem for her. I think she is the horse to beat.
She's the horse to catch and the horse to beat. Her speed makes her amazingly dangerous in this spot. And that last race, the Bessarabian, that was a very, very tough field. A couple of next out winners. The runner-up coming back to win the Whimsical, a graded race with a 90 Beyer. Red Cabernet is the number 3. This is a horse that hasn't raced since Halloween. She was third in a 2-turn turf race, the Overskate. That race has come back pretty weak, Mike, and I think she might actually be a slightly better on the turf.
That's how I looked at her, too. I think she's probably better on the other surface. Her recent, anyway, synthetic form, I mean, she's run some good races, Dan, but she just doesn't run her fast races on this surface.
Royal Wedding, the 4, another horse that has not raced since the Overskate, so she's going to have to deal with a long layoff. She has run well fresh in the past, but if you look at her form, she's only 1 for 11 on synth, maybe better on turf.
Yeah, and she's just not really fast enough to beat several of these horses. I mean, she's just got to get so much faster, it feels like it's impossible.
I'm a big fan of the 5, Merveilleux, who's going to make her 4-year-old debut in this race. Let's go back to her final start as a 3-year-old, the Ontario Damsel, where she caught only 5 other horses, but you see her just sort of cruise to the lead on the outside here. She is going to drift in the stretch, but she really is never losing once she makes the front. Her figures as a 3-year-old were real solid. She's run well fresh in the past. I think there might even still be a little bit of upside here.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a real chance she takes a significant step forward at some point this year. It may not be right off the layoff day, but it feels like it could definitely happen after the Woodbine Oaks. She had a little bit of a trip in that Woodbine Oaks. After that, they tried the Queen's Plate. Forget about that. Her last 2 races of the year sort of pointed her out as a horse who had a lot of improving to do.
Number 6 is Brassy, beautifully bred daughter of Medaglia d'Oro, trained by Owen Hardy. This horse raced at Churchill on the turf last time out. Maybe pace compromised a little bit. I did not like the field she was in against. This horse has run well at Woodbine in the past. Perhaps just simply a sleeper because she might be a synthetic horse all along.
Exactly. I mean, she could be a real wild card in here. Obviously, she's got to get a lot faster to beat this field, but I don't know that I'd want to be too hard on her for the turf races because maybe she's just better on this surface.
You had a feeling that Sky Gaze could be ready to go on a tear after the race we're going to show you right now. This is on October the 3rd at Woodbine. First start of a 3-race win streak, and she is just buried in behind horses going 7 on the synth, looking for a place to go. Time's running out. There's the hole. She's going to squeeze through, and I like the way she finished this race off.
Yeah, agreed. This was a good sign for her, Dan, because it was a sort of a return to synthetic for her early on in her career when she finished first in those first 2 synthetic starts. She ran well in this race, but she was very green, and it just felt like her rider had a tough time controlling her. It cost her the win in that grade 3 in October of 2019. Back on the surface in that race, way more professional, down to Turfway over the winner, way more professional, way more handy. Did it from off the pace, did it from on the lead. She's got to get faster too, but she feels like she's really improving.
Like Merville Yu, a 4-year-old with a lot of upside potential. And I think you used the word professional perfectly to describe her. She is coming into her own, has to do it off a little bit of a layoff, but not as much of a layoff as the fellow 4-year-old Merville Yu. Heavenly Curlin hasn't raced since February. She was just in tough, and that's the very one. I mean, the 5th place horse is one of the better turf marathoners in the country. He's come back to win 2 grade 3 races, buyers of 96 and 97. She's a graded winner on synthetic. And I think a mile and a 16 is good for her. It's all about whether she gets some pace, because I think she needs something to run at.
I agree with that. They like to sit back and make a run with her. But man, it just feels like there's tons of upside here. Just getting better with every race at the end of 2020. I know they tried turf. It didn't work out. She's probably just back on the right surface, Dan.
Several quality fillies and mares in the Trillium. This should be a nice show on Saturday to kick off the 20-cent pick 4. We take a look at our top picks. Again, I was a big fan of Merville Yu last year. Maybe this is too much to ask off of the layoff, but I want to give her a chance considering her tactical speed. And Skygaze, you can't knock her form. One of her last 3 coming in, very tactical, and I think she's going to be a price in here.
Yeah, that's mostly why I took her. I think she is going to be a price because she just doesn't have the figures, Dan. As good as her form is lately, they're not fast races. So I think people are going to expect her to have to improve to win this race, and maybe she will. But I'm going to take a chance with her in here just because I feel like she's going to be a great price. Super Escape, probably the horse to beat.
Yeah, Super Escape's going to be tough to catch, especially if she gets the same trip as she did in the 2020 Trillium. 7258 for Mike, 5183 for me. The grade 3 Trillium. Nice field for the feature race at Woodbine on Saturday. Good luck.